I have worked primarily with indie authors, which I love. And the PDF is less about me, and it's all about all the questions I had and indie authors have had throughout my working with them over the years, all in one place. And it's by no stretch of the imagination like an end all be all, for everything to know. But it is a good, solid base if you're like, I have this book, I know I want it in audio. I just have no idea how that works.
We'll talk about this and much more today. Welcome to a Writer's Day podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Writer's Day podcast. My name is Ruth Douthit, and I'm an award-winning, multi-published author of books in various genres. And right now, I have a new release, A Shadow of Hope, a romantic suspense that I just released. It's out into the world, so head over to Amazon and get your copy today and post a review. I'd love to know what you think of A Shadow of Hope. And also head to my website, artbyruth.com, to sign up for my newsletter so that you can learn more about my upcoming projects. I always let my newsletter subscribers in on the secrets first, like my next cover reveal and title reveal for book 3 in my Desert Shadows Suspense series, information about workshops that are coming up that you can register for. So head over to artbyruth.com today. And if you like today's episode, please consider subscribing over at my YouTube channel. Follow me on Spotify and iHeartRadio, and leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you think of today's episode. Okay, let's get busy. Liza Jacob is here with me today. She is a professional audiobook narrator, and she's going to talk to us about her process working with indie authors. So you know the drill. Grab your favorite beverage, a comfortable chair, kick back and relax as we listen to Liza talk about what it takes to be an audiobook narrator. Hey everyone, welcome back to Writer's Day. I'm excited to introduce to you and to myself, Liza Jacob. She is a seasoned audiobook narrator. Welcome to the podcast, Liza.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I've only interviewed one other audiobook reader. His name was Samuel Rugen. He's a British stage and television and film actor. And so he kind of gave us what it was, the process for recording for publishers. He has his own business, and so he's licensed out for publishers. And he read my friend's book for, I think it was Tyndale Publishers. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about yourself. Why don't you tell my listeners about yourself, how you got into it, and then we can talk about working with indie authors to record their books.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I first came to audiobooks like I think a lot of folks. I just loved audiobooks. I worked in graphic design and illustration out of school, and you go from that very social environment to sitting quietly at your desk, and I really gravitated towards getting to listen to stories all day. Like, who wouldn't? And then my cheer coach from college, maybe 10 years after I graduated, she posted on Facebook and was like, "Hey, I got to read this book. Check it out. It would be a big help if you leave a review." And I was floored. Like, I don't know who I thought read audiobooks, but I was like, I don't know, like demigods, sure, like made up magical figures, right? Like, who knows? And then I asked her loads of questions. I just absolutely dove in to figuring out how to take it seriously. I was in the perfect position for a career change. I just had little kids, and so the author visits were getting hard because I had been the illustrator for some children's books. And, driving around and going to book fairs, that's very in person, and my life was very at home at the time. So I had the time to invest in learning the trade and the craft and taking acting lessons and learning about the industry. And all the while taking work and, honing the skill. And now it's been 7+ years and 30+ books. And, it has been on and off, right? When they're really little, they need you. Someone gets sick, you're the at-home parent.
Mhm.
But I've really loved it. And it's great because it's creative work where I get to do what I'm best at. And yeah, everybody always has to wear other hats at times, but it's work where you really mostly get to do your craft, which I love.
Oh, I love that. That is so fascinating. And you have 30 titles done with
Hmm.
over 10 accents mastered?
Yeah. Oh, that was one of the training things I really enjoyed. I knew I would need, just to be competitive, the ability to do a handful of basic accents that sit regionally around my own. I grew up in Maryland and I have a very sort of bland,
Mm.
vanilla American accent. Um, but, it's great to have like a Southern accent in your back pocket or New York, that kind of thing. And so when I studied with a dialect coach, I was like, well, what about this? Well, wait, I see this one. What about that? Because she has someone she works with who had this fabulous website with all of these different ones laid out. And she was like, yeah, sure, if you want. I mean, sure, if you want. And it just, we got down so many different ones. It's really become like a sort of pseudo passion, a side passion of mine, working on dialects and just thinking about linguistics and all the different ways then that's tied back in. Not just like, oh, okay, this character is Scottish. You need a Scottish accent. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. But when you think about dialect and the way we speak and storytelling and world building, and for a moment I pivot. And while I'm not stepping into being a writer by any stretch, I'm trying to see what they were seeing, right? So where the princess is disguised in the marketplace, right? It's that classic, like she dressed up in her lady's maid's outfit or whatever. And she's not going to speak that language, even with the same, air quotes here, accent as the man who lives half a mile away, but he lives outside the palace walls. And what do we do with that, right? What does that mean? And there's all kinds of different things when you really like just sort of grind in and figure out like, yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure. This is a Southern accent, but where are we placing it? Like, what are her vowels like? What are her consonants like? And what is the subconscious little tip you're giving to listeners that the author has already placed just below the surface? You know what I mean?
Now, you have a website that provides a PDF guide for
Yes.
any indie author who might want to hire you as opposed to just going the AI route, correct?
Yes, there's so much to unpack there. Yes. So I have worked primarily with indie authors, which I love. And the PDF is less about me and it's all about all the questions I had and indie authors have had throughout my working with them over the years, all in one place. And it's by no stretch of the imagination like an end all be all, for everything to know. But it is a good solid base if you're like, I have this book. I know I want it in audio. I just have no idea how that works.
Mm.
Then please let me give you this PDF. It talks about whether you should choose solo or dual or duet or multicast, which basically is shorthand for how many people are reading and in what style it's done. How to find a narrator, what are the choices? It talks about different forms of payment. The most common is per finished hour. Goes into what per finished hour is. All those things are covered there. The main part of my website is me. It's my samples and my work. Um, and then AI. At the present moment, my personal feeling, just taking off my narrator hat and putting on my audiobook lover hat, is it's a little bit like riding around in a car that has been spray painted at home. The car is so lovely. Why did we do that to the car? And I feel like authors pour their soul into these books. Now, look, if you've written a how to train your dog in 3 days book using AI exclusively, sure, have that narrated by AI. That they go hand in hand at that point. But if you feel like you left a piece of yourself between those pages, I would listen to AI narration. And I don't mean the like 2 minute clip. I mean, I would challenge yourself to say, like, oh, okay, I have a 250-page book. It's going to come out to be about 8.5 hours. See if you can sit through really engaged 8.5 hours of whatever AI model you're considering. That is my challenge to you. For me, it's like watching paint dry.
Mm.
But if you feel differently, you have every right to feel that way. It may progress. Sorry, it may progress to a point where it isn't like that. But man, you listen to what it is right now today for this conversation. I think human stories are best told by humans. And I don't think AI is going to really have the ability in long form to perfectly understand and reproduce human subtext, human emotion, and human connection.
Mm.
But again, other people may feel differently, and that's their business.
Sure, yeah. Oh, that's a great point, though. Well, I know as an indie author myself and talking to other indie authors, cost, of course, is key, but
Yeah,
also I think it's about bringing our characters to life. And a lot of my indie author friends say, yeah, but it's worth the money because if you work with a really great narrator, they can bring your characters to life. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and what your
sure.
process is. I mean, I know the other audiobook narrator I spoke with, he had a sheet of all the author's characters in the book, and then he would work with the producer to create the accents and record them. And so as he's reading along, he would come
Mm,
to a character and think, "Uh-oh, what was that accent again?" And the producer would say, "Here, let me play the cut that you did." And he'd listen to it and he'd say, "Oh, yes, yes, okay." And then he would continue. What's your process for creating all the voices for each character
hmm
and remembering them as you're reading through the book? And also, how do you make sure that the author is pleased with how you are creating their characters?
I'm yes, 100% to everything you have said so far. I love a spreadsheet. I am an artsy free spirit who is grounded in old school study skills.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I, when I prep the book, I read it cover to cover. And every time I come across a character, they get a line in my spreadsheet. And anytime you describe this character in any way, I'm going to add that to their description. Then I go through, and in my mind, everybody sort of gets cast. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Mhm.
well, he's really tired. He's had this hard life. His voice is going to sit a little harder, a little whatever. Or maybe I'll pull YouTube clips if I found something online where I'm like, oh, this here, what he does, that's what we're talking about. And then each chapter gets its own section where I give like a synopsis, right? And if there's any big emotional beats, we'll have that in there highlighted. Oftentimes, if it's a longer, sort of more like epic fantasy kind of book or something that's got a lot of emotional tension and release and lots of different sort of levels, I'll even do like almost like a heat map where you can see the emotional arc, right? Like here's our tension building, and then I'll switch to blue and I'll say like here's our comic relief, right?
Mm.
All of this is a multi-page spreadsheet for me. And oh, and the characters, once you've really cast them, pick, maybe somewhere between 10 and 30 seconds max, not a lot, and read in that character's voice. That all goes to my author. The author gets to read through it, listen through it, and say, like, you nailed it on Stephanie, but Ava's a little more this.
Mm.
Can we try that one again? Sure. This is the right moment for everybody, right? Like, neither you nor I are going to be happy if at the end of the project you're like, why does this person sound like a child? Like, no one needs that energy. Um, so that's when that happens. And casting the characters is super fun. And oftentimes it's one of the most like hard and fast decisions you make that you have to live with moving forward. And so getting it so that everybody feels like it's really right is so important. And
Mhm.
99 times out of 100, I agree with whatever changes may come up from the author. And every one time out of a million, I have written back the email and been like, I hear you. But, like, am I misunderstanding this passage where they allude to this dark and mysterious past? Like, is that not affecting them? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I'll ask my
Mhm.
questions and sometimes I'm wrong. And I, I really enjoy that collaborative moment because then once we have that framework, that outline, that structure, it allows me alone in the booth to make really fun, informed decisions. I can really get into the book. I can live those moments without veering off the path, without handing over something at the end where you're going to say, like, whose book is she reading? Like, what is going on? Um, Sorry, I covered a lot. Have I answered your
No,
question?
that's great. Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to communication is key. And so I think that's
Oof.
wonderful that you provide the author snippets of what their characters will sound like before you ever record a chapter. That's brilliant.
It's so important. And if you should never be shy to ask for like your MMC and your FMC or male and female main characters because you're going to be living with them over and over again. It's also totally fine to, once you've done the audition, to say, like, hey, I've got this short, and I mean like 2 page. I've got this 2 page thing that I have, really set in my mind. I'd love to hear your take before you lay it down in the studio. And
Mm.
they might give that back to you as like an iPhone recording they did that evening. And that is okay, so long as you know they have a real access to a real studio.
Sure. Yeah.
But that way you get to go like, no, I appreciate your take on this, but she wasn't surprised, right? She knew he was going to be in the room.
Hmm.
And then you get that clarity. But absolutely, so much communication up front, communication on the front end, and then it sets you up to be pleased, to feel seen and listened to. And then the surprises are fun surprises, right? That like they did
Hmm.
something fun with the guy in the market, and that felt like it added to your world building, not like this person is jogging away from you with your work in hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, I imagine genre matters significantly because I write mysteries, I write cozy mysteries, suspense. I also write fantasy. And I myself know when I'm going into a book to write a different genre, I change the voice inside my head, right? But
Mm.
also with fantasy books, I've written a few, we tend to have a gazillion characters. And
Hmm.
it's kind of silly how many we have, but I mean, I wrote a book called Dragon Sword, and I had the main female, the main male, the main bad guy who was a male, the second villain who was a female, her, guys that worked for her and the elves that worked for the bad guy. And then I had all these side characters, tiny little fairies and tall fairies and the wizards and, various wizards. And oh my goodness, I can't even imagine handing that over to you and saying, please create different voices for each one of these characters.
You should. You should feel great about it.
Exactly,
It
yeah.
is the gig. Like that is the job.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, it's one of those things where it is a big undertaking, but it's one that narrators love. And having it done well is a beautiful thing. And having it done poorly or slapdash or by a computer, like
Mhm.
that's it's heartbreaking. But I don't think you should feel bad for a second. Those I have those spreadsheets where you're like, wow, I'll write the author an email and be like, fun fact, we are now on character 75 in the
Yes,
series.
right?
Like,
Isn't that crazy? We get like that
yeah,
as
well,
fantasy writers, but I
there's
can't even
5
imagine.
realms and there's 10 different
Exactly.
types of gnomes. Like, I don't know what you want. This is
Mhm.
what it is. Like,
Mhm. Oh my. But I
yeah.
can imagine a romantic comedy would probably be simpler, right?
You certainly have fewer characters usually
Mm.
in like a um, contemporary sort of rom-commy novel. Um, but that's not to say they don't have their own challenges. The
Mm.
only time where I read an audition and I was like, that's just not for me. It was a scientific nonfiction book jam-packed with scientific terms and
Oh.
names for different types of mushrooms and fungi.
Oh my goodness.
I stumbled through that audition and I was like, thank you very much. Thank you. No, they were like, sure. Thank you. And I was like, I know we're parting as friends, but we are indeed parting. Like,
Yes. Well, that's good that you know your limitations. And I was going to ask you, though, also, how do you overcome the challenges? I mean, I can't imagine you're going into your booth and you've settled on all the voices, the author's happy, and you're ready to record.
hmm,
What are some of the challenges that pop up at that stage?
I think so. Something that's not uncommon is you will, over the course of reading the book, which reading the book takes 2 to 2.5 times as long as simply reading it aloud without constantly like stopping and going back to make corrections on mistakes and things like that. So in that time where I'm in the booth, sometimes because I'm a human being, the soul, the intensity will just sort of drop out a little,
Mm,
and you hear yourself do it, and you're like, okay, take a break, right? Stand up, walk around, and then go back and start that chapter over. You
mm,
know what I mean? Because
mhm,
if I stop believing, the listener stops believing. And it's a lot like talking to a friend. Like it would be weird if all of a sudden your friend was super distracted when they were talking to you. You'd be like, I can hear that you're not paying attention to what you are saying. Like, are you okay? And the listener can catch it too. So I think learning to hear that in yourself is just a practiced skill, and knowing that it's not the end of the world, but you do need to go back and pick that up. And every once in a blue moon, you'll hit a scene where you're like, I have read this scene 2 times, and I still can't make it feel like a thing. You know what I mean? Like I can't make
mhm,
this feel like a moment this author was certain they needed to write down, and this never hit the editing room floor. Why? And
mm,
it doesn't happen often, but it's a good time to say, okay, pause, stand up and walk around. That didn't work. Okay, maybe an email to the
mm,
author. Maybe we just flag that section, move forward if that feels good, and then come back to that after we have a tiny bit more context, right? That will help sometimes. Um, there's also tongue twisters where I'm like, oh man, like Bertie Bott's is ba 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 ba, and you're like, oh, you're murdering me with the alliteration. But you just go slow, you work those through. That's it's never that bad.
okay. I can imagine. I would think I know a lot of indie authors hop skip over the editing phase of the writing process and might use AI or something. I personally hire a fantastic editor. To me, it's
Mm-hmm.
worth the money. But I can imagine you reading some indie author's book and you're thinking, I don't think they had this edited. I'm repeating a lot of the same phrases. And
Mm,
surely an editor would have caught that. So how do you handle that? I'm sure you have to use a lot of finesse, right?
sure. I mean, it's a delicate thing, right? Like you never know what happened in that writer's life while they were writing, right? Like no one writes a book in a day.
Hmm.
And so you want to handle it with grace and professionalism. At the same time, if you have not edited your novel, it is not ready for audio. There's
Hmm.
nothing I can do short of editing it for you as I read it, which no one wants. No one's going to be happy with that outcome. There's nothing I can do that's going to make it sound the way it did in your mind. And one of the fastest, easiest ways to ensure that your work is audio ready is to sit down and read it out loud. Like, find a photo of a friend and read it to the photo of the friend. It does not need to be another person, but you catch things. And also, the flip side of that is don't feel bad if you didn't catch everything. A woman I worked with on many, many books over and over and over. I love her writing. She absolutely gets her work edited. I have zero complaints. And still, because we're human beings, there will be things that, slide
Hmm.
under. And I catch them when I read them because I'm reading someone else's words. There are things I don't catch that when I get proofed, I didn't see the mistake, but the proofer did. You know what I mean? When they check
Hmm.
that the audio exactly matches the text. We're human beings. Don't
Hmm.
sweat it. Do your best. It'll be fine.
That's fascinating. So I have one last question before we
Mm,
wrap up, and I let you introduce, your website and everybody.
mm.
I'm sure that there are a lot of things audiobook narrators wish indie authors knew. Can you give us a list, a short list? What is it you wish we knew before we hire you?
Mm, I would say know that we're on your team, first
Mm,
and foremost. Know that we are on your team. And if you have a narrator you like and you listen to, don't be afraid to email them. Narrators are uncommonly kind. And the vast majority, almost absolutely everybody, has their own independent website. And so we're pretty easy to find. If you want to ask them any informed, respectful question, no one's going to be anything other than polite and hopefully helpful. What else? Good audiobooks do cost money. Oh, I'd love to share this tip. So this was something that I was talking to somebody about cost a while back. And I was saying, like, they were saying, yeah, it's kind of a lot. And I was like, I get that. Um, but I think there's two different ways to see it as an independent author when you are fronting the money for this. One, I haven't sold a lot of copies. I have no reason to believe that I necessarily will, right? Like I don't have a massive social following. I haven't like built the tribe as it is.
mm,
So I know, right, that I'm not going to make my investment back right now. That's just not a thing. But I want to have it in audio so that as I work, as I build my catalog, it's there for my fans, my readers, my base to go, oh my gosh, this is great. I want more of this person's writing. Great, they're there. You can see it as an investment. Option two is I know myself, I know my fan base. I know that when I released the ebook of this last year, I got, so many new followers, so many sales, so many, reach out, so many book clubs reaching out to me, whatever the things are, whatever your markers for understanding your business are that tell you, yes, I do think I can float, whatever the amount is. And I can say that the we are not allowed because it's illegal for you to do price fixing. So narrator to narrator, we are not allowed to discuss our rates.
Sure.
But the SAG-AFTRA, which is the big union for everybody, the minimum for the SAG-AFTRA rate is $250 per finished hour. That is just bare, nothing else, $250 per finished hour. And so it can be pricey for sure, but I think it helps to, like anything else, have a business strategy behind it. You know what I mean? If you're going to, whether it's your covers and you're going to invest in getting a really great cover artist, or your website or a social media manager, all these different pieces, audiobooks are like that. And all of those things do reflect back on your brand. So it's just good to think about where audiobooks sit within that business plan. And I think there's a lot of right answers. I think your book is so lovely, and it breaks my heart when people, don't go for the audiobook when they really are ready, or they jump in too fast and then are like, oh my gosh, I spent all this and I didn't make it back. And I'm like, well, yes. Like we weren't there yet, but we will be. So I think, God, I could talk about this all day. I'm sorry. I know you said wrap it up, and I'm like, I don't want to.
Well, you've given us so much to think about. And so listeners, head over to lizajacob.com and you can see, you can listen to samples, you can read reviews, and she has that guide for you if you're seriously interested in hiring her. I love that you offer information for us to see the process, because it's pretty new for a lot of us. So that's a great place to start.
I'm so glad. Yes, please. The Indie Author tab has nothing to do with me, as only information I have accrued over the years that I hope is helpful in building the bridge between indie authors and the audiobook community.
Great. Yeah, so head over to lizajacob.com, check out her resources and information. And Liza, this has been so wonderful. Thank you. I'll definitely have you on again.
Thank you. I would love that.
Wow, wasn't that fun to listen to Liza Jacob talk about being an audiobook narrator? Wow, she gave us so much information. So head over to lizajacob.com where you can learn more about her, listen to her samples, read her reviews, and she has information for indie authors so you can learn about her process and how to hire her. I'm just thrilled that she came on today to talk to us about this. It's such an important topic, and I will definitely have her on again so we can continue the conversation. And I hope that you've been inspired and maybe motivated to hire her or another audio narrator for your book. It really is an investment to keep in mind. But most importantly, keep going forward on your writing journey, overcoming obstacles and challenges, because that's what makes us grow as authors. And until next time, thanks for listening. God bless.